Hey loves, it's Britt. Just finishing up my Venus Pluto Synastry series. And today I want to talk about the often overlooked, and I personally feel wrongly overlooked aspect of the inconjunct. So today we're going to talk about what it means to have your Venus in conjunct with someone's Pluto in Synastry or vice versa. This one can be the most plutonic of them all in a weird way. It's not as powerful right off the bat as the other aspects, but if you do end up in a relationship with this aspect, it can bring up some difficult feelings, and it can be personally, I feel, and as I've experienced it, one of the more difficult exchanges of Venus and Pluto, as far as Venus being disempowered or being even in some cases downright abused by the Pluto person. This one can get really ugly. And so the nature of the inconjunct aspect is that, or the quincunx is the other word for it, it's awkward. And I have a video on this. It's one of the first astrology videos I've ever done because I have quite a few in my own natal chart. So I like to talk about this one because it is often overlooked, and it's a not so minor aspect. It does tend to show up, and especially in synastry, it does really show that in those areas we are very different, and it's not like the opposition where we're different but we're harmonious because we're like two sides of the same coin. Like, we need each other. Like, the opposition is like, we're really different, yeah, we can piss each other off, but we make a whole. With the inconjunct, it's not so. We're so different that we can barely even talk to each other. We can't even see each other, where we have to give up something. We have to give up a part of ourselves in order to comfortably be with this person and interact with this person. So when it's Venus and Pluto, we can actually see that, like, the Venus person's love nature, something about the way that they love, their self-worth, and their finances even, they have to give up something in order to comfortably blend with the Pluto person. And the Pluto person can have such a power over the Venus person that they can make the Venus person do something they're not comfortable with doing, even financially. They could, you know, be yeah, stealing their resources in some way, or like, it can get ugly financially. In all Venus Pluto aspects, we can see a financial implication because of the rulerships, the second house, Venus and Pluto, the eighth house, right? But with this one, the Pluto person can have this power over the Venus person, where the Venus person knows, like, they have to give up something. They have to give up their resources. They have to give up their love. But they're not comfortable with doing so. It's not like the opposition where the Venus person, like, they want to give it all up and they want to give it all away to the Pluto person and, like, take me, and it's like this, like, romantic thing. The inconjunct, we don't want to, but we know that we have to give it up. So it's a really interesting one. It is not as strongly felt. Like, it's not gonna turn two heads like from across a crowded room. It's not like that. But if you do end up relating with someone with this aspect, it's just good to be aware that, like, the Pluto person can make the Venus person do things that they're not comfortable with. They wouldn't usually do. Maybe they aren't actually that generous, or they feel like they're put on the spot, and it can be very destabilizing or very threatening to their self-worth and their love nature in general. So, like, when you're in love, you want to feel like this innocence and this playfulness and this flirtiness, and when we have this aspect, that is kind of like put on hold because we feel invaded. We feel like our privacy is being invaded. We feel vulnerable. And if there's other things going on that make this more manageable, like we do have other compatibilities, then maybe that's a really sexy feeling. Like, maybe it's like, yeah, we're being invaded, but it's okay because we've got, Venus conjunct Mars too or something, and we do have compatibility. So you'd have to look at the whole thing. But the Venus person does feel like a vulnerability, like, you know, yeah, they're getting into me, right? Like, do I want this? Like, they have to kind of think about this, and it's awkward. It can be awkward because so much is being stirred, and the Pluto person can be really powerfully jealous and like they want to take from the Venus, and we can see that in all Venus Pluto contacts, that the Pluto person, it's like Beauty and the Beast, right? Like they want what the Venus person has, but in this aspect it's the most difficult in that the Venus person doesn't really want to give it up and ends up doing it anyways, and feels invaded, or even like it's almost like this one can feel like it's like being raped or something, like, not to be like so disgusting, but like that's what can show up with this energy is that level. So now of course there's always a good and a bad of every aspect, yes. So the good with this aspect would be that like they are both forced to look at themselves. Like the Venus person is forced to look at, okay, where am I giving up myself and I'm not really comfortable with that? Like where, it can make the Venus person actually a lot stronger in their own set of values and in their own self-worth and who they are and what they will say yes to and what they will say no to. So it can actually be a strengthening exercise because they're going to have to say no to the Pluto person sometimes. They're going to have to say, no, there's nothing wrong with the way that I love, or no, I'm not comfortable giving you all my money, or like, no, I'm not, and it can strengthen their self-worth and their ability to like discern who their Venus is worth giving to with this energy. So that can end up being good in it. And then the Pluto person gets to see the way the Venus person operates and the way they're like so smooth and they're so flirty and beautiful, and it triggers the Pluto person in all kinds of ways, but then they can actually end up being a better version of their own Pluto. So this is still a transformative aspect. There still is the potential for like a deep soul bond here or a soul lesson here, but you just want to be careful of it when you're having this, because the Venus person can feel threatened, and the Pluto person can feel very jealous, or it can bring up the lower nature of someone's Pluto potentially the most, I think, because of the nature of this aspect more than any other aspect. So it's one of those relationships you still you will recognize it. I say this about all Venus Pluto aspects, it's like a love of a lifetime, but with this one, is it a love of a lifetime, or that funny relationship that was very strange and made you act very irrational, and you look back like, what was that? And you want to look at the whole chart. If there's other things going on, this is going to be more minor, and maybe it can even be like kind of sexy, and it's definitely deep. It's definitely something's there, something is stirred in both people. But just something to look out for with this aspect. It's sort of like a warning, I guess. As I've experienced it. And this one, it just lends a little bit of like a fear. Pluto can sometimes show up as a fear in people. And with this one, because of the awkwardness of the inconjunct, we can be a bit fearful of each other, and because of the way that we're blending, it's not as easy to resolve that fear. And so sometimes the Pluto person acts a little bit more dominating, and the Venus person can be a little bit more too passive to their own liking and act in a really strange way and look back and think, wow, I acted like that. And same with the Pluto person. The Pluto person can look back and think, wow, I can't believe I did that to the Venus person, or I can't believe I acted like that. So really good opportunity for looking within, self-inquiry, growth, all of it. I'd love to hear your experiences of this aspect. I know that one, it sounded more negative. I mean, it doesn't have to be negative. With a beautiful synastry, like this will just be an added level of intensity and depth, but with some already plutonic stuff going on and not a lot of compatibility, it could be very dangerous. And it's just worth mentioning. I think the inconjunct aspect is so important in relationships because it really does show where we're not compatible. We're so different. We need to make an effort. We need to give up something. We need to talk and be very understanding and giving to each other, which with this one, sometimes we don't want to. We don't want to. Or we give too much and then we're resentful that we gave so much because that was not how we really are. We just fell under the spell of Pluto. So yeah, I'd love to hear your experiences of this one. I do offer one-on-one sessions. My links are below, and we'll talk soon. Love you guys. Thanks for watching.